why the U.S. Department of Defense pays over $1 million a year to the Atlantic Council, and why they have 7 CIA directors on their board.
The Pulse of America right now hates USAID. And while they are rogue, they do play an important role. It is stuff that we need to be involved in, Venezuela, Iran, Russia, China. I mean, just to name a couple, we need to be involved in that kind of stuff and to do kind of like what we're talking about, to influence. And so it's just, in the meantime, they've done a lot of corrupt shit. So, you had mentioned an organization, the Atlantic something, with 7 former CIA directors.
Atlantic
What
Council.
is that?
Yeah. The Atlantic Council bills itself as NATO's think tank, effectively. The easiest way to think of them is the sort of civil military, semi-clandestine, even though it's public-facing, coordinating arm for NATO priorities. So when you have NATO is obviously the Western world's military alliance, and so they're concerned with the military, activity of U.S., France, UK, the whole, all the NATO countries, and it's their sort of consensus military activity. And people are, finding this out, who are mostly concerned with domestic policy. They're finding this out more and more with this USAID story, which is that a huge and sometimes the most important and dispositive element in military work is actually the civil affairs, is actually the political and civil society topography of the target country and its regional partners, allies, and adversaries. And that oftentimes it's that the political which determines the military result much more so than the military activity itself. We're seeing this, for example, with Georgescu, right? NATO wants to build the military base right there and just point like a gun out at Crimea. And this will obviously put the people of Romania, put a big fat kick me sign on their back from Russia the moment this goes operational. Okay? Well, NATO doesn't want that to happen. Could NATO roll into Romania right now and run a, Yugoslavia run back like 1995 and 1999, and Georgescu gets elected, gets elected head of state, decides to cancel the NATO air base, kick everyone out. Kind of a diplomatic incident if they roll in and napalm raid, from fighter jets and drones, the sitting government of Romania, just because they ran that party won the election and decided to cancel a military base. So the military can't do that directly. What they need is the civil military. They need the civil side of military operations to make that election result not happen. And you see the same thing. It's not just always about tilting elections. Sometimes it's about the passage of a law. For example, Ukraine, there was a lot of tense debates about the post-2014 Maidan revolution government's in Ukraine's stance towards the Russian half of the country, the Russian ethnics, the Russian-speaking portion part of the country, the representation of the Russian side of the story on Ukrainian TV or on social media or culture or the religious issues around the Russian Orthodox Church. Well, every bit of pro-Russia institutional affinity link that's cleaved out of Ukrainian politics or civil society helps further achieve the NATO goal of folding Ukraine into NATO and of helping Ukraine at that point militarily achieve reconquest of the breakaway Donbass and Crimea region. And so, but the problem is if Zelensky didn't want to do that, for example, in May 2019 when he took office, or April 2019. If he didn't want to do that, it would kind of be a diplomatic incident for NATO if they ran strafing air raids over Kiev until he promised to kick the Russian language off of Ukrainian TV. effectively, ban or place extreme limits on the Russian Orthodox Church influence. If he defied the IMF and its privatization plan for Ukrainians' energy assets. NATO wants that done, but NATO can't be the one to do it. They can't have their fingerprints on the gun. So what they need is a sprawling civil military whole of society capacity to have that political result achieved, but have it come from the civil institutions in and around that. And that's how you have the scandal of things like the redlines memo. 70 U.S. government-funded NGOs, all signatory to the USAID-funded, as well as NATO-funded and U.S. State Department-funded Ukraine Crisis Media Center, crisis management. This is the U.S. and NATO-funded umbrella arm. We talk about this 90% of Ukrainian media. Well, a lot of this is run out of these centralized U.S. umbrella groups that coordinate the media surround sound of all these different NGOs and media organizations. And one of the major ones is called the Ukraine Crisis Media Center. Well, I've talked about this before. 1 month, Zelensky takes office April 2019. In May 2019, the Ukraine Crisis Media Center issues Zelensky a redlines memo saying that that Zelensky will suffer political instability if he crosses any of the 25 listed below red lines that touched Zelensky's ability to negotiate with Russia about energy affairs, negotiate with Russia about security affairs, block the privatization efforts of major Ukrainian industries, deviate in any way from the path to accession into the EU, into the NATO and surrounding EU bodies. It had a section for their education, for their culture, for their language, for their media, for their energy policies, for their security policies. It's not just the USAID Truman Show in terms of what us as civilians think are organic institutions, but are in fact, USAID proxies. It's the policies of sitting governments. Zelensky only became the head of state for Ukraine because of the political instability this very same USAID network inflicted on Viktor Yanukovych. However you feel about him, I'm not even opining an opinion, but the fact is he was run out of office in a rent-a-riot operation where all of the major groups involved were USAID funded. So, easy come, easy go. And what they're saying is, twice in that memo, the top line of it says, these are red lines, cross them, instability. They say it right again in bold in the memo, right before the 70 signatories. Message received, but NATO can't say that directly because, hey, that's an attack on democracy. If NATO says it, we're supposed to have a civilian-run government. So you need a civilian front for the military consensus. That's why the U.S. Department of Defense pays over $1 million a year to the Atlantic Council and why they have 7 CIA directors on their board to juice the capacity to create this civilian front for a military monster.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.